A police station in a major American city was occupied and looted and burned. Most of us assumed we would never live to see something like that happen here, but it did happen. So the question is, has anyone been arrested for doing that? Will anyone ever be arrested? No one in authority seems especially interested in apprehending the people who did it. All of it happened on camera, but the perpetrators just walked away. And it's possible, maybe likely, that most of them will never be punished for it. That's striking. It's a very different experience from the ones most Americans have living here. As Minneapolis burns and crowds grow in the streets of Atlanta and many other cities, the rest of us are continuing on as we always do, dutifully following the rules. This is hardly the first time something like this has happened in America. Spasms of destructive violence are a recurring feature of our history, in fact, of every country's history. The ideologues will tell you that the problem is race relations or capitalism or police brutality or global warming, but only on the surface. The real cause is deeper than that, and it's far darker. What you're watching is the ancient battle between those who have a stake in society and would like to preserve it, and those who don't and seek to destroy it. Underneath it all, this violence doesn't have that much to do with the behavior of the Minneapolis Police Department. For evidence, watch this tape. It's from the 1992 riots in Los Angeles. It was shot almost 30 years ago. It could have been shot this afternoon.
It's not right! It's not right! It's not right what y'all doing! I came from the ghetto too! Same as all of you did! Why destroy my business? Why destroy my truck? Why steal my computer? I'm trying to make it! Could you understand that?
The first thing you notice about that video, in addition to how overwhelmingly sad it is that it's not a racial dispute. The elderly man could be the grandfather of the young rioters swarming around him. But that's misleading. They are nothing at all alike. The old man is fighting to defend civilization. He's armed only with a hammer, but he's trying. The young men are working to tear it down. And those are the battle lines. They always are. Which side in that war have our leaders taken? Well, watch carefully and it will become obvious. The rioters in Minneapolis and in other places act as if they're allowed to loot and burn. And in fact, they are allowed. No one stops them. The authorities don't arrest them. Instead, they pander to them, flatter them, desperately try to win their love. Why are masked lunatics setting fire to Wendy's? Because the rest of us are sinful. That's what our leaders tell us. The crimes of the mob are the punishment we deserve. That's their argument.
Were destroyed. There's an amazing story out of Minneapolis I just saw a couple hours ago. A man named Corboy Bala, who's a firefighter. He took his life savings and put them into a sports bar. His plan was to open it on Monday. Guess what? It's not opening on Monday because the arsonist burned it down. He happens to be a black man. So this wasn't some way of getting back at white people or exacting racial justice or whatever. It's a black man whose American dream was set in flames, gone up in flames completely by these arsonists who had no regard for his effort, for his vision of what he wanted to do, the jobs he wanted to create, the pleasure he wanted to bring his neighbors, and all that has gone up in flames. And by the way, he had no insurance, so he's really in a very, very bad place.
It's the opposite of what our leaders guarantee us when we elect them and send half our salaries to them every quarter. They promise the deal is we put you in charge and you will keep things calm and you will protect us. You can't control all the details, but you can't let crap like this happen. Why are they allowing it? And they are allowing it. There's no question.
Well, they have this concept of letting people, allowing them to blow off steam, whatever that means now. I'm all for people blowing off steam over this tremendous injustice, this horrific killing of Mr. Floyd the other day. There was absolutely no excuse for that. Everyone who's seen the tape thinks that this was an awful thing that happened to him. But the way you blow off steam is you protest, you scream, you make noise. You don't go about this by taking a Wendy's or a liquor store or somebody else's workplace and burning to the ground, or for that matter, going after a police department, which is a symbol of our civilization, the institutions that keep this society from turning into a complete chaos. And yet the idea is, well, they're just expressing themselves, go ahead and let them do it. And you let that sort of thing happen, it goes from Minneapolis, then it spreads to Atlanta, and then it's Los Angeles, and it keeps going and going and going. And now Atlanta, by the way, there's a major competitor channel of ours based there. Let's see how much coverage they give it.
It's a really good point. I guess we should have been a little bit more prepared for this since they've let our cities rot for the last decade at least. If you drive through any major American metropolis, all controlled by one political party, there are people living in filth on the sidewalks, shooting drugs in the open. I mean, they've let things decay for a long time to the point where you can't live in a lot of these places unless you're really rich, as most of them are. So the question is, like, what's the thinking there? Are they just incapable of creating clean, bright, welcoming spaces? Are they just disorganized? I mean, why are they allowing this in the first place? It's an attack on normal people, middle-income people of all backgrounds.
Well, look, it's one thing to say that you can't run a good school system or you can't take care of a homeless problem or whatever it is, but it's quite another when you've got people setting your police precinct on fire as the policemen run down the street in fear. That is nothing like civilization. That's called basically the state of nature, as Hobbes described it. And you let that sort of thing happen, and pretty soon you've got yourself a situation that nobody can control. We should expect one thing out of government, if nothing else, and that is to protect us and to maintain order. And I think if they'd arrested some people early on, maybe people would have thought, well, I don't want to spend the night in jail, so I better back off. Instead, the thought was, well, just let it rip, let them do what they want. And now, as you say, it's metastasizing like a cancer, starting off in Minneapolis and then spreading to other cities around the country. Absolute failure of basic political leadership.